Now, of course, we spoke about this grand final that is taking place at Loftus Versfeld, and now we take you through to our rugby expert and journalist, Michael Vlismas, who is joining us via Zoom. Very good evening to you, Michael. Our nerves are frayed. There are no nails remaining. The Bulls led at halftime, and right now it's not looking good for the South African franchise.
It's not, unfortunately, as you say. It was a great start by the Vodacom Bulls, 6-0 with two early penalties. They got off to a good start, 13-7 ahead at half-time. But the Glasgow Warriors fighting back in the second half. It's 21-16 to the Scottish team at the moment. And the Vodacom is right on the Warriors' skyline as we speak, pushing hard for 53,000 people in the stadium, but we are already into injury time here, and certainly the Vodacom Group with it all to do at the moment.
I mean, as you speak to us, Michael, we are seeing the players rejoicing and celebrating in the background there. They are officially the United Rugby Championship holders, and that is the Glasgow Warriors successfully defeating the Bulls at a sold-out stadium. Where exactly did it go wrong for the Bulls side?
I think the intensity that they wanted from the Leinster semi-final, the same kind of focus that they had, that Jake White had said, do that for me again, it just didn't seem like that was there. They looked in control early on, but I think the Glasgow Warriors did exactly what they needed to do. They just stayed in the fight for as long as they could, because they certainly didn't look very good to start with either. Both teams didn't look their best to start with, and it was the Vodacom Group who certainly had the better of the open exchanges. But that second half certainly caught them, and I do think that intensity that they had against Leinster just wasn't here today.
No, absolutely. I mean, we were hoping that we'd see yet another South African franchise walk away with this championship after the Stormers did it in the first season. But I want us to chat about the Glasgow Warriors, especially Coach Franco. I mean, we see what he has been able to do with Benetton, able to turn them into this championship side. And now what he has been able to do with the Glasgow Warriors. What has the mettle of Franco just really brought onto the side as they are now crowned champions?
Well, he's been phenomenal for them. He's given them hope. He's given them belief in their ability. The fact that they've won this grand final, beating Munster away and then beating the Vodacom Bulls away, those are two huge hurdles to overcome. It's reminiscent of what Munster did last season when they also won travelling. Won that grand final travelling, eventually getting Stormers in Cape Town. But what Franco Smith, certainly a wily tactician. He's a man that is known for the fact that he puts in immense amounts of work before every game. The players know it and respect it. And I think what you've seen here is a man that knows what it's like to be the underdog. When he was involved with the Cheetahs and at Free State Rugby, he brought a certain DNA there as well. And I think he's done exactly this. He's given his players the game plan. He's given them the self-belief. And again, I say, they played the final to perfection. They weren't at their best, but they were never out of it. And that was key.
No, absolutely. I mean, what we see, especially with the finals, that it's not even about home ground advantage anymore. It really is about the strategies that are put into place, in terms of the starting 15. And really, that's where the game is won and lost.
And that's exactly what Jake White said in his press conference yesterday. He said, I don't want to hear this tag of favourites. Favourites means and counts for nothing in a grand final, and particularly in this competition. This season in the Vodacom United Rugby Championship, have we not seen teams that are meant to be favourites, that have got all the scores, Leinster case in point, just getting knocked over at key moments? And unfortunately tonight in Pretoria at Loftus Versfeld, it's happened to the Vodacom Bulls.
And I mean, Vlismas had spoken at large about the advantage of getting the Bulls and seeing them playing in the latter stages of this competition. It really does bode well when we look at the Springboks. How is this going to be of an advantage to the national team setup?
Well, what you've got is you've got the key players in your national setup that have remained competitive deep into a competition and closer to those key tests. So they're still sharp, they're still fit, they're still very, very, match experience and match wise. So that's definitely going to be key for them. Psychologically, though, they'll feel this. There's no doubt the Brothers and Bulls are going to feel this. This one's hurt for a very long time because this was the season. They've done everything correctly to get to this point. Yeah. And unfortunately, it didn't go their way. But certainly looking ahead to what's coming from a Springbok level, I certainly do think it does bode well for that Ireland series in the sense of these players having gone so deep into a competition.
Absolutely. I know we're talking about the URC, but we know there's so much rugby action happening, especially earlier on when we saw the Springboks back in action after they were last in action when they lifted the Webb Ellis Trophy, beating New Zealand, of course, in the World Cup. What did you make of that encounter and really just how dominant they were against that Welsh side?
They were indeed, but isn't it interesting as well? It wasn't the cleanest Springbok performance we've ever seen. It wasn't the most clinical. There were errors in their game as well, but they got it done, and I think that's the secret. That's key. Tonight in this grand final, you had a similar situation. It wasn't the best performance by a Vodacom Bulls team, and let's be fair, the Glasgow Warriors themselves did not bring their best game. But one team got it done. So yes, from a Springbok perspective, I think, it's a lot of new combinations, a lot of positives to see from those combinations, a lot of depth out there. And I think that was always going to be the case against Wales. It was to try a few new things and see where it settles. So I don't think the scoreline is going to matter too much to Rassie Erasmus and his coaching staff. I think more important is they got it done, having introduced a whole new batch of players into the mix.
No, absolutely. It was great to see the likes of Advil van der Merwe, what they were able to do, Sasha Feinberg, Ngomezulu. But I want us to now, as we wrap things up, also chat about the Blitzboks, because we know they are in Monaco right now. It is all to play for in terms of that last booking that is remaining for the Paris Olympics. And of course, we know they've started really well against Mexico, Tonga and Chile. How do you see them faring in Monaco? Can they really book their ticket to the Paris Olympic Games?
Well, there's huge pressure on them. They're actually against the wall, and the tournament before, when they had the final, it didn't go their way. They were really knocked out there. They didn't win, convincingly at all. I think they had one win coming in, in that tournament, in the sevens final. So, that was always going to be the tournament that they wanted to perfect, what they were going to have to do in Monaco. They didn't get it right there. So they've got to win everything. There's no room to slip up. And I think, they're digging deep, because it's no secret. It hasn't been the season they've wanted at all. So their backs are certainly against the wall. But again, who knows? It seems like it might be a common theme of getting it done, even if it's not pretty at the moment in our rugby.
No, absolutely. Michael, I am going to let you go now. Thank you so much for all your insights once again. We thought we'd be celebrating. We thought this interview would be high in spirits, but unfortunately, the Bulls unable to get over the Glasgow Warriors in that URC final, which took place at the Loftus Versfeld. Unfortunately, for the South African franchise, unable to lift the championship. They lost to Glasgow Warriors after they led at halftime 13 points to 7. So not really the outcome that we were looking forward to, especially with the sold-out crowd that went through to Pretoria.